Hi, this is Alexcursus, a show where I take a look at some Gunpla and see how authentic they are. This time I'm looking at the RGM-79C, GM Type C, and RB-79C Bore Type C set. This set represents the Federation's Space Department's main force as they would have in the post-1 year war era, where they go through some downsizing as well as some minor upgrades to keep up the performance. You will see these guys at the end of the Stardust Memory show, where the Federation employs a bunch of them to try to stop the Zeon Remnant, the last fleet, from dropping a space colony down onto Earth. I'll be rating this set with Saga, Style, Action, Gimmick, and Absence. Style is how much the Gunpla or figurine resembles their counterparts in the anime, manga, games, blog books, or other media. We actually have looked at the GM Type C a while back. The GM Type C in this kit is exactly the same, just in the Federation Space Department's color. In the traditional GM's ceramic titanium green and red. Now the red and pale green not only reminds us of its 1 year war counterparts, but makes the sculpts easier to see on camera. Of course, also the flaws in the mold. But these are relatively minor. I would say it's pretty much the same, just different color. Color doesn't make it worse. Just different but not worse. The Bore Type C, on the other hand, is something we haven't looked at all. This is the first time the Bore Type C made it to the HG line. Previously, there were some resin kits and Master Grade, interesting enough, but not HG, not 1-to-144. And the Bore being less of a mobile suit, more of a working machine, mobile pod is what the Federation called them, you would think the Bore would look out of place among mobile suits. But credit to the original designer, which is Okawara once again, and Tomino to a degree, because he come up with the idea of having a pretty much deep sea submergible research machine in space. So those two come up with the idea, and the Bore Type C, like the GM Type C, is being redesigned by one Katoki Hajime. And the extra flair that Katoki added to the Bore, mainly the subarm here, that we will take a look in action, really helps in convincing people that this is some industrial machinery being armed to participate in war. And the scope on this HG really reminds me of some actual space model. Most of those would be in larger scale, as 1-to-144 is pretty small for realistic military models. But in case of the Bore, it is somewhat futuristic, but also with a lot of familiar real-world elements. For example, you can see the gear for the recoilless rifle for its elevation, and through the window you can see the pilot's seats. Now the pilots isn't completely reliant on their eyesight to see out of the Bore. It does have a HUD and other instrument to aid in aiming and fighting in space, but yeah, there is a giant viewport straight to the cockpit. There are details on the underside as well. It is not hollow or just flat. And the thruster nozzles have some really fine sculpt in there. There is even a vent for the recoilless rifle. Color separation, not much to talk about. The bore is a very simple machine, just gray with a bit of red around the view windows. Even the side view windows have clear parts, although they look like they are dark because, lack of lighting inside. But yeah, transparent viewing window. And then a different color for the recoilless rifle and the mount. And another point that I want to mention in particular, aside from the base of the arms, most of the bore's body, even the backpack as well, if you can call it a backpack, have is knobs of, the sprue gates hidden inside the assembly. So none of them is, outward like these here. So you can be a bit sloppy with them as long as, they are flush. So yeah, the body of the bore is really good because of that. The arms and the base of the arms, where Bandai have to reduce the part count somewhere. It has a front half and a back half for the bore body itself. You can see a small seam line here, but otherwise pretty flush. And then there is actually a top cover here, and then a lower cover here, and then the hatch itself with the viewing ports. Of course, the guarding rails are a separate piece as well. But yeah, quite a bit of carc pans, but they are not wasted either. Oh, also, I don't think the camera is picking it up, but yeah, there are anti-slip gratings inside the claw, on the top ones as well. But they're inside, very dark, can't really see. And there are rifling grooves at the tips of the barrel as well. Again, hard for the camera to focus in, but yeah. So overall, very well put together. I mean, okay, fine. The recoilless rifle itself is basically two halves put together with the details added. But yeah, very flush construction overall. You can see the seam line here or there, but not bad enough in most angle. So yeah, a very, very, very well put together mold. And really, really grounded the Gundam sci-fi aesthetics with its very real-world based design and details. Katoki did a good job of personalizing the firing team that Tomino and Okawara put together for the Federation Space Forces, where they couldn't produce GM quite as many as they wanted, and they may not be able to provide all the GM with the heavy weapons they wanted. And so they designed the bore, a very basic machine, something that reminiscent of their real world counterparts, where very industrial machine is being upgraded, up-armored for logistics and support. And Katoki did a good job of personalizing it to go along with his mobile suits. I gave an A for the GM Type C. The ball, I want to give it an S, but since this is a set, it would culminate it into A+. Next is action. Action isn't just the number of articulations, but how useful those articulations are. For the GM Type C, it is exactly the same as its Earth Department's counterpart. And so we are not going to do much here. The ball, on another hand, is uncharted territory. First off, the recoilless rifle can go up, only limited by the magazine. As for depression, limited by the supposedly recoil mechanism. Pretty much 45 degree down, up 30 degree. So pretty generous if we are talking about tanks, I suppose. And then it have side-to-side swivel, 360 degree if you want to. Obviously, elevation to the back would be limited by the guardrail, but you know, not a big deal unless you really want to, you know, display the ball running away while shooting back. And then we have the arms, which have a ball joint at the base that can move about, what do we say, about 30 degree, up, down, side to side. And then it is a swivel on a sort of elbow like, which have about 60 degree of movement. And then you have the main arm up here that can go all the way back, and then the sub arm can go all the way back, and the main arm, kind of limited by its own geometry, can go about 120 degrees. So a lot of movement up and down. And then the claws themselves can swivel. Same goes for the subarm. The idea of the subarm is when you have a large piece for the ball to grab on. You know, obviously the cross at the top is kind of small, but in combination with the subarm, it can grab onto it quite securely. Now the ball's claw are slightly wider than most mobile suits' hand, so it wouldn't be able to hold mobile suit weapons without any modifications. But yeah, you can easily insert some kind of spacer so that the ball Type C can hold on to mobile suit weapons. The thrusters are fixed in place, no movement there. And the cockpit hatch, unfortunately, is not movable. So action-wise, everything that's supposed to be movable on the ball is movable. The range of the articulation isn't bad either. I guess you can say the recoilless rifle don't actually, you know, going back and forth, but, you know, not much gunpla in 1 to 144, even 1 to 100 can do that, so I wouldn't deduct any score from there. The ball's thrusters, I mean the main thruster is supposed to be movable in the lore. I guess this is a miss, but again in 1 to 144 it is uncommon for mobile suits to have their thruster be movable. Again, cockpits would be unmovable in both cases as well. Not anywhere that I feel like I should deduct points for the board type C in action. And for the GM type C, we have previously looked at, it has pretty great action. So I would just keep it an A with both of them. Next is Gimmick. Gimmick exactly the same as the GM type C in Earth Force color. Again, beam saber hilt with a socket for beam saber blade, but doesn't come with the set. And yeah, I give this GM type C a hammer bazooka to showcase how that would work here. Due to the geometry of the forearm, the grip of the hammer bazooka basically have to crank all the way forward. Other than this oddity, yeah, Gimmick is mostly fine. You still get the bullpup machine gun, the extra hands, and then the stance options, and spare shoulder joints from the powered GM. For the ball, we had a look at the recoilless rifle, very well sculpted, can traverse quite a bit, and there's a stand for the ball where it just go right where the main thrusters are, so that you can have the ball like floating on the ground instead of, just landing awkwardly. In addition, the sprue come with the double cannons from 08th MS team. The set does not provide you with optic stickers. I put my own on. I was kind of winging it, so not perfect, but works well enough. To swap them is just plug and play. I like the double cannon better, but yeah, the GM Type C usually go with the recoilless rifle. There are these extra RPG motors for the regular ball, which is not used on the Type C at all. Either way, it's in the kit, so yeah, I ought to show you. Gimmick wise, once again, the GM Type C gave you quite a lot, but missing the beam saber blade, it's kind of a weird mistake. It shouldn't be made. For the ball, the stand is nice, the autocannon is nice, the lack of the optic sticker for the double cannon isn't a big deal. It could give us that sticker, but it's not important enough to warrant any negative. If anything, I wish there is a adapter for the claws to grab on mobile suit weapons, but again, Bandai kind of changed the way weapon grips works on HG over the years, so not giving it isn't a big deal either. So while the ball is excellent in the gimmick department, GM Type C isn't doing great, so again, an A+ as a set. Finally, and probably most important for this set, is absence. I talk around it as usual. This is a P Bandai set. Quite an old one at that. Basically, the HGUC ball for the base model was released quite a few years after the GM Type C, and Bandai, I wouldn't say coasting, but I think by looking at the sprue, Bandai had the Type C, the ball Type C, ready to be released. They just end up shelving it for whatever reasons. And, not to waste a very good design, they bundle it along with the GM Type C as a Stardust memory Federation Force Grunt set. For whatever reason, Bandai never released the FGM Type C in the Space Department color or Space color. And yeah, this kit as a P Bandai, I would say this is a, aside from the difficulty of ordering P Bandai, besides from getting there, day one, minute one, second one, or, going to some theaters. Aside from those problems, I think this is a good set for P Bandai, where people who, should I say resources, because time is also resources? Yeah, let's say resources. For people who do not have the resources to repaint their regular Earth Force or Earth Department colored GM Type C and bundle it with a board Type C, which doesn't have much screen time at all, but it is an Katoki design that people liked. There is a Master Grade ball that is pretty much this design that have been sold very well. Yeah, like if you ask me, Bandai should have released this as a general release because, Katoki set, they can throw in, beam saber blades. And wow, that is a new update for the Type C and then the ball. But, they opt for P Bandai. In this case, somewhat understandable, at least for this set. But that would hurt the availability. And then as for things missing, for the GM Type C, again, lack of a weapon holding left hand, and then lack of beam saber blade. And for the ball, really not much is missing, aside from maybe movable thrusters, which is again not something usual on HG on 144. So, and maybe a bit of sticker for the double cannon, again not much. So again, excellent on board Type C, not so great on the GM Type C. Overall, B minus, not quite C. Again, at least for this set, I understand why it is a P Bandai. The GM Type C is quite much older. And like, this is the smallest squad unit of Federation in space during the Stardust Memory, the last fleet conflict. And putting this as a set for P Bandai makes sense. So, not against them in not releasing it generally, but against them in, lacking in availability. Combine the two together, we get a B minus. So, to recap, style-wise, both of these guys are Katoki's design, and Katoki, while releasing these two, are the mechanical designer director for the line, so he gets to say, and he released them quite faithful to his own design. So that's give it, and just that, GM Type C is slightly less than ideal in the coloring separation and part separation. Ball, on the other hand, is excellent, but since this is a set, we kind of have to average it out, so we get an A+. Action, excellent action on the GM Type C, pretty excellent action for the board Type C as well. Nothing groundbreaking for both sides, so solid A. Gimmick, again, somewhat disappointing on the GM Type C for the lack of a beam saber blade and a weapon holding left hand. For the ball, the stand and double cannon is great addition for people who want to have a slightly different ball and display the ball in a more, display the ball in a more stable, let's put it over here, You can have the ball a bit more stable than just trying to. I mean, the double arms can keep the ball pretty stable, but having the stand allow you, more freedom of display. So that is great. Uh, yeah, great gimmick for the ball type C. Not so great for the GM type C. Average out to a solid A. Finally, absence, because the base kit for these two are a few years apart. I am not against Bandai releasing it as P Bandai, although they could have made it a regular release. Bandai do quite a bit of this kind of sets release over the years, and Stardust Memory didn't get any major release for quite a while. I think they can throw this out, but they have their marketing department running the numbers, so they releasing it at all, it's a sign of faith. They do reprint them from time to time. I found this set sometime after they did the last reprints, or the reprints before. I think there was a recent reprint a few years back. But yeah, being a pre-Bandai means availability isn't great. But the set itself is pretty complete. Again, just not the GM Type C. But again, what's missing isn't rare to find compatible replacement or supplement, so not a big deal. Not much is missed for the Bob Type C, so overall A for absence as well. So the verdict for the HGUC RGM-79C and the RB-79 Board Type C is A for style, A for action, A for gimmick, and A for absence. Overall, a great kit if you want to have the background army for your Stardust Memory collection, or you just want to have all the ball variants, or you just don't have the time to repaint your GM Type C in Space Force colors. I wish Bandai released this as a general release. And yes, I mentioned the fandom is larger now. Like I said, if they included, say, beam saber blades, and then maybe a few stickers and decal sheets for the boss, yeah, it could be a nice Stardust Memory, 40th anniversary Stardust Memory set. Of course, you got a lot more symbolic and prominent mobile suits in the Stardust Memory, but how reprints are sucked up quite quickly these days. Yeah, I think Bandai can repackage these guys into a general release. Thanks for watching. See you next time.